Hello there everybody and welcome back to Movie Squirm. Now today is going to be a new series that I'm starting called Latest Horror Watches. So basically every time I watch 10 horror movies, I'm going to come on here, talk about them, give my quick review thoughts if you like, and then I'll watch another 10 and I'll do episode 2. So we are on the very first episode here. I just thought this would be a fun little video to do and you guys might enjoy watching me talk about multiple films in one video basically. Now I do have reviews for some of these down below in the description. You can check them out if you want to hear more in-depth thoughts of them. So not all of them are reviewed, but some of them are down in the link down below. Also, I may have cheated here with the title. I am going to include the odd thriller movie in these. There's not too many. Most of these are horror. But there are borderline / thriller ones in here as well, or sort of dark subject matter movies, if you like. So without further ado, let's just get into it. And the first movie is one that came out back in April, and that is Evil Dead Rise. I've done a full review for this. I've even done an Evil Dead ranking. I've talked about this movie quite a bit on the channel already. But if you missed any of that, this is basically one that I was anticipating at the start of the year. Seeing an Evil Dead film go to a tower block, basically an apartment block, was something that I found very interesting to me, because most of these films are actually in the cabin, and it does a lot of things that the Evil Dead franchise does just in an apartment block. Basically, you got the demons trying to get these characters in an isolated location. They're kind of locked in the apartment block room. And you know, it's basically someone finds the Book of the Dead and the tape and plays the disc backwards and stuff like that. Yeah, I liked a lot of the characters in this movie. I've heard a lot of people say that they weren't great or anything, but for me, I did actually care about the characters. Alicia Sutherland, who plays the mother character in this, was fantastic. She was so creepy and demonic, and she was just totally evil, basically, hence the title of the movie. But she was one of my favorite demonites, if you like, in any of this franchise. And the fact that this family dynamic came into it, where she's sort of putting her own kids in danger, kind of, they had to sort of toe the line there with kids being in danger and stuff like that. It's always a line that you've got to toe, I suppose, in horror films. But it had so many great sequences. It was very well directed. One of my favourite parts of the movie was this young girl looking out the peephole and just seeing her mother there as this demonite, and the mother's asking her to let her in, and there's just like a little bit of blood on the peephole and stuff. Really, really well directed, I thought. The third act was awesome. Our main final girl in this movie was fantastic, and I love the way they included all the blood on the face, the chainsaws, all the Evil Dead good stuff is in there. And in the third act, something happened that I didn't quite see coming. It was kind of a first with experimentational thing with the demons. I thought that was very interesting. Overall, I had a great time with this film. I do wish they used the location a little bit more to their advantage, but I'm glad in the third act they kind of picked that up a little bit and done what they could with it, because most of this movie is isolated in the one room. But I think this was a fantastic entry to the Evil Dead franchise, and I had a great time with it. One of the best horror movies of the year. Next up, we have Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. I had heard so many bad things about this film. It was one of the worst films ever made and stuff like that. So I went into this with absolutely no expectation whatsoever. And it isn't a very good movie, I've got to admit, but I think I got a little bit more enjoyment out of it compared to a hell of a lot more people. I am a slasher fan. I always have been. It's my favourite subgenre in horror. So to see Winnie the Pooh and Piglet just going around fucking people up, they kind of work for me. But the story is kind of bad. I mean, we open with this animation, and you know, Christopher Robin living with these, you know, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet and stuff in the woods, and it's all told in animation form. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. And then we actually see this Christopher Robin guy who is very, very poorly portrayed and terribly acted. And then I thought, oh, this movie is going to go into some bad places here. It's going to be true what everyone said, because the acting in this movie is quite terrible. The whole look of Winnie the Pooh and Piglet just didn't look good, really. The masks and costume design was very, very poor. But basically, these girls, teenage girls, come to the forest to stay in this cabin, and Winnie the Pooh and Piglet are pissed off that Christopher Robin has gone, and they want to take some revenge out and let their anger out, basically. It was where the kills, where I enjoyed this movie more. They definitely went down some brutal routes. I didn't expect the movie to be this sinister and, have so much carnage in it. And they went there with some of it. Some of the kills were taken away by CGI blood, though. I'm not a fan of CGI in horror movies. I wish that wasn't there, but there were some interesting moments and slasher kills here, especially one where this Piglet character had this big sledgehammer, and it's all done in slow motion, and you just see one of these teenage girls just fucking fly across the swimming pool and stuff. It's not a very good film, but I did get a slight little bit of enjoyment out of it. I mean, I would give it like a 5 out of 10. The story is terrible and stuff, but overall, I enjoyed the kill parts of this movie, and at only 80 minutes, it kind of flew by. So that is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Next up, we have more of a thriller type movie, and this is Missing. This is a brand new 2023 release, and this is the follow-up to the movie Searching, but I have not seen Searching. However, going into this film, I heard you don't have to watch it, and you can just go and see this as a one-off movie. This basically follows this young girl whose mother goes away with her new lover on holiday, and her mother goes missing, and it's all down to this girl trying to uncover the mystery and what has happened to her mother and her lover, basically. And it's all told through laptop cameras, eye cameras and stuff, phone devices. It's very, very well directed and edited and put together, if you like. Now, I didn't know how I was going to handle this concept going in. I haven't seen too many movies done like this, but it definitely worked for me. And as the story goes on and we find out little details of where her mother has gone, has she been kidnapped, has she been murdered, I got so invested in the story. I wanted to know everything that had happened. It was kind of like in real life, if missing person cases happened, you do wonder what has happened to them, and you want to uncover what's gone on and how they went missing and stuff. Now, there are some creepy elements to this movie, like when she's looking at some CCTV footage of her mother on holiday and just getting bundled into a van and stuff like that. So I did include it in this video. There was some creepy moments and some edgy or seat stuff, but overall, the whole mystery of the movie was really well done, and I always wanted to know what was happening towards the end of the film. So I was fully invested, and one that I do recommend you checking out, as a 2023 release there. One of the better movies made this year. Next up, we have a film called High Tension, otherwise known here in the UK as Switchblade Romance. Now, I've done a full review for this one if you want to check it out as well, but I'd heard a lot going into this movie, like it was one of the most brutal movies of all time, one of the French uprising of horror in the early 2000s there, when we had this and Martyrs, and I think there's another one called Frontiers, which I'm yet to check out. This basically follows these two girls who go and live with one of the parents for the weekend on this secluded farmhouse. So they're traveling to stay with one of the parents and their family. And the first night they get there, they go to bed, and there's a strange knock at the door, and this absolutely sadistic serial killer enters the house and home invades the farm, basically, and starts taking everyone out in the family. And basically, it's about one of the teenage girls is moving around the house trying to avoid them, basically. And it was so tense, like it lived up to the name for the first half of this film. Just watching this guy trying to find her and other members of the family and just kill them in the most brutal ways. And I was really on the edge of my seat. I was like, holy shit, this film is going for it. And the second half of the film kind of becomes like a road trip film where we follow one of the teenage girls trying to track down the killer, basically, and what's going on. And the first half of the film was definitely better, all on the farmhouse and stuff like that, but it was still good in the second half. Now, what this movie does is tries to be a little bit clever towards the end of the film, and there's a little bit of a twist going on here that I did not see coming in a million years. And for me, it elevated the film. A lot of people say it's a terrible ending and stuff, but for me, it totally worked. I I love slasher films, you know, even if they're just doing what Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey's done. I would prefer a story though, and something a bit more about it, and this movie definitely does that. It tries to be interesting and switch it up a little bit in the third act, and I totally appreciated that. But I've got a full review for this down below, like I said, if you want to check it out. But I really was impressed with this film. I don't think it was anything groundbreaking or anything like that, but I did enjoy it. I'm glad to finally have seen it now, and I want to pick it up on physical media. So that is High Tension. Next up, we have Tobe Hooper's 1976 film, Eaten Alive, and I've done a full review for this one, believe it or not, down below as well. Now, I watched the Texas Chainsaw Massacre on 4K last month, and I thought, I want to check out some more Tobe Hooper films, and this was the next one that he made. I read up on it, and I thought, that's a really cool concept. This is basically about this hotel owner called Judd, who kills his visitors who come to his hotel and stuff, and feeds them to his pet crocodile. I mean, that's a movie I want to see. Now, this is a very sleazy film. It's got that grindhouse 70s feel towards it. The best things about this movie were the kills, and when this crocodile is in action, just chomping people up and stuff like that. But there are some very, very unlikable characters in this movie, mainly the hotel owner, Judd. I just couldn't take to him whatsoever. He's a very forgettable villain, one that grated on me. We also have this couple who come to the hotel. Madam Burns plays one of them, who you remember from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And yes, she does that screaming here once again. But her husband was one of the most unlikable characters I've ever seen in a movie. He's just so weird. And I feel like when I watch a lot of these 70s horror films that there are actors doing weird things in there with the dialogue and the way they act and stuff. And this is definitely one of them films for me. But it was an interesting concept. I do think this could definitely benefit from a remake. Sorry, Eaten Alive fans, but I do. I think this is something that could totally work. It is actually based on a true story. When I was looking up the trivia and all, I couldn't believe that. But overall, not a great film in my opinion. It was always going to be hard for Tobe Hooper to reach the heights of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and I don't even think he got halfway there with this film. So, not the best follow-up film from the director, but it's watchable. I just didn't love it. Robert Englund is actually in there, though, who definitely gives off the best performance of the film, and you can see why he went on to be one of horror's greatest icons, because he puts a really good performance in here as probably the best character in the entire film, actually. That is Eaten Alive. Next up was a documentary watch for me, and that was Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy. So this is basically a 4-hour documentary based on the Elm Street franchise. I've done a full review for this as well, believe it or not, down below. Now this was something that I'd wanted to watch for a long time, and they only released it on Blu-ray here in the UK a couple of months ago, and when I seen it on the shelf, I just grabbed it instantly. And Nightmare on Elm Street is the reason I love horror. If you check my review out, I'll go into the story of why I love horror, how I became to watch Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time and stuff like that. But Robert Englund, Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, that is the reason I've got this channel today, because I absolutely adore horror, and that is because of this franchise. And this was a huge nostalgic trip for me. I really enjoyed how they gave a equal amount of runtime to each movie in the franchise, including Freddy vs. Jason. The only one they don't have is the remake, but I think this came out in the same year as the remake, so we will excuse it for that. But it had so many characters from the movies, all the cast. You know, you got Lisa Wilcox, is it, from Nightmare on Elm Street 2 in there, who, you know, I just never seen her in anything else, and to see her talk about the movie here was great. All the Dream Warriors characters are in there. We've got Heather Langenkamp, Wes Craven, Robert Englund himself, all talking about the production and how the movies came about. And it was just so interesting to me. Not a minute of this documentary was wasted. I even found a new love for the movies that I don't like in this franchise. For example, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 4, they were basically making that movie with no script. They basically had to make it up as they went along. And I just have to take my hat off to Rennie Harlan there, who was a first-time director. How that movie got made is crazy to me. So, yeah, I feel like when I watch an Elm Street 4 now, I'll see it in a new light. But even hearing about Freddy's Dead, a movie I despise, how that came about, it was just all so interesting. You know, I really did love this documentary. One of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Now, I don't know if you're going to love it if you're not an Elm Street fan, but if you're a horror fan, I definitely still recommend checking it out because it's just so interesting. And it's not just the journey of the franchise of A Nightmare on Elm Street. We even go on a journey of how New Line Cinema was made here. That intertwines with it, and that was equally as interesting as the movies, how Robert Shea built this empire with the help of the original film and Wes Craven. It was just fantastic stuff. And I watched it in, you can watch this in kind of like a TV show, basically. You don't have to watch this in 1 4-hour sitting. I basically watched the first movie and then the segment on the second movie, and then I paused it. The next day I went and watched the segment on the third movie, and then I left it for the next day and watched the segment on part 4 and 5. You can watch it however way you please, and the documentary will definitely let you know when they're moving on to the next part. So I definitely think you should watch this if you're an Elm Street fan, or 2, just a horror fan in general. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And that is my pick of the bunch. Yes, I'm going to do a pick of the bunch every time out of the 10 movies that I talk about in these videos. And my pick of the bunch is this: Never Sleep Again, The Elm Street Legacy. Next up, we have a film from the 80s, I believe, called The Stuff. This is a low-budget horror film that has got quite a cool following from what I've seen over on social media and stuff like that. So I decided that I would finally check this out. And this is basically about a lot of people who are sort of addicted to these yogurts. And there may be something in the yogurt that is making them addicted. So this guy is hired by these other sort of yogurt companies to investigate this company that is making the stuff, and he gets inside and tries to find out what's in it and why people are loving it so much. And the guy who plays the private detective, basically, I thought he was a really good character. I latched onto him. I loved his deep Southern American accent and stuff. Basically, it's a film about drug addiction, in my opinion, disguised as a killer yogurt film. Especially when you see the last scene of the movie, I do feel like that was what it was trying to do. But overall, I didn't love this film. I know a lot of people rate it highly for a low-budget horror movie. It was interesting when the stuff was actually coming alive and sort of moving around and stuff. I was like, what the hell am I watching here? But the kills in this movie kind of didn't do it for me. I thought it was poorly edited. So basically, we'll see like this yogurt come at someone, and then we'll just see cut to a dead body, basically all mangled and stuff. We don't actually see the creative kill happening. I know it's low budget and stuff, but for me, that kind of took me out the film a little bit. But definitely got more interesting towards the third act as well, when we're uncovering what's happening and stuff like that. Nice to see Paulie from Goodfellas in this movie as well. But I didn't love the stuff, but I would definitely watch it again. It took me in different directions that I thought it would. I didn't realise this was going to be a big, sort of food production kind of company investigation type film, but it was. So if I know it going into the next time on rewatch, knowing that, I think I might appreciate it a little bit more. But overall, it's a 5 out of 10 movie for me. That is The Stuff. Next up, we have The Last Matey. Now, you will not want to go to the cinema again after watching this film, let me tell you. I'm joking, of course. But this basically is a fun location for a horror movie, a slasher movie, if you like. Basically, a group of characters are watching a movie in a cinema, and this killer is going around picking them off one by one in the dark, very silently, if you like. And there's only about 8 people in the cinema. It's not like a packed out cinema or anything like that. Now, this film had no story whatsoever, kind of like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Even less of a story, if you like. But where this movie is at its best is the creative kills. I thought they'd done a really good job of making all these practical effects and stuff actually work. Like, there was a guy who is addicted to smoking, and he goes outside for a smoke and gets his neck sliced, and all the smoke sort of comes out of his neck there. And there was like a couple who are making out at the cinema, and the killer kind of kills them in a way to make it look like they're still making out. He kind of kills people to do with their personality in this film, and I thought that was quite clever. But like I said, there was no story to this movie, and the killer was very uninteresting when revealed. He was very forgetful, and yeah, it was just a nothing movie, really. It was just a film to come and see people get killed. But the creative kills were done well. I thought it was well directed. Overall, it wasn't anything special. And that is The Last Mate in Me, a Spanish 2020 movie, I believe. Next up, we have Clive Barker's Nightbreed. Now, this is going to be a very difficult movie for me to explain because I do feel like I need to rewatch this film to fully grasp what was going on. But this basically, it follows this guy who is having these visions and voices in his head, and it's sort of pulling him towards this place called Midian, which is like this cemetery, and underneath this cemetery is where the monsters of the world live. And he believes that he kind of belongs there. And he goes to check this place out, and lo and behold, there are some monsters living under there. Now, I did watch the director's cut of this film because a lot of people were saying the theatrical cut might not make a lot of sense. So I watched the director's one, and still, I think I got about 80% of the film, but I do feel like on rewatch, this will benefit a lot more for me. I did plan to review this on the channel, but I don't think I could give it a fair review without watching it again. But some of the monster design here was definitely interesting. So I was looking at them half the time, not even listening to what they were saying, because I was like, wow, that looks so good. It's a good concept, a interesting imagination that Clive Barker has here. And David Cronenberg, as this doctor-type character, was in this film as well, and he was just such a sinister character. I did enjoy this film. I just feel like I'll get a lot more out of it if I rewatch it. So that's all I can basically say about Nightbreed. I know there's probably a lot of people watching this who are fans of this movie because I hear great things about it. It didn't get the best reviews when it came out, but it's got like this following now. So definitely going to give this a rewatch at some point and review it on the channel next time I watch it. That is Nightbreed. And finally, we do have The Clove, Hitch Killer from 2018, a Netflix original, I believe. This is definitely more on the thriller side of things as well. And this is very loosely based on the killer Dennis Rader, BTK, who you may have heard of. But it's still a fictionalized tale. And this is a very interesting concept. When I read the synopsis of this movie, it made me want to watch it instantly. And this is basically about this town where these 13 women were murdered between a period of time. It might have been between like mid-70s to 1990s. And no one has been killed for the last 10 years in this town. But there's always a memorial where people get together and pray for the victims' families and the victims and justice coming to the town. And this young boy goes to his father's shed that is locked up. He finds the code, goes in the shed, and there's this little lockbox underneath the floor. And he finds some stuff in there that makes it look very likely that his father is actually the Clove Hitch killer. And when I read about that and, read the synopsis, I instantly wanted to watch it. And it basically follows the movie of this young boy and his friend, this young female friend, investigating his dad and if he is the killer or not. And they uncover more stuff along the way and stuff. Now, this is a very slow-paced movie, but the slow pace works for it. I just appreciated how this tale was told, and I was so invested in the story. Now, it's not a fantastic movie or anything like that. It's a solid 7 out of 10 film, but it was one that was definitely interesting and kept me gripped from start to finish. I don't want to say too much about the movie because it will definitely give away a lot of the story, but I do recommend this one if you like serial killer crime type films. I had a good time with it. I'm glad I finally watched it. So that is The Clove Hitch Killer. Okay guys, I hope you all enjoyed this first episode of my 10 recent horror watches. I'll hopefully have one of these in the next month or so. In a few weeks when I've watched another 10 horror movies. First up will be The Boogeyman by Stephen King. I'm actually going to see that after recording this video, and I may review it on the channel. So we'll start next episode's video off with that film, and I'll hopefully get a few horror watches done soon so I can make episode 2. So thank you so much everyone. Please give this video a like and subscribe if this was your type of thing. Leave a comment down below about these films and what you thought of them, and I'll get back to you all, I promise. Thanks so much, and you all take care, and I'll see you on the next video.